AJ, the calendar is going to flip pretty quickly toward the trade deadline after tomorrow. How would you assess what your team has done so far?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we got one more day of the draft, and it's an important day for us tomorrow. So that's where the focus is for not just us in the end, and also I think for most of the industry. And then it turns to the deadline. So, it's been I think we're getting to the deadline right about 500, and it feels like it's been that type of half. Where there's been some good, there's been some things that we've got to improve on. We're in position where we could potentially get to October, but we're gonna have to get better, and we're gonna have to improve. And I think a lot of conversations over the last few days and weeks with our group and our staff and our players are the first ones to talk about that yeah we've got to adjust some things. We've got to play better here in the second half, and we've been in this spot a couple of times here in the last few years, and then we've been able to play really well in August and September. And I think from our standpoint, each year is different. So I think it's kind of like we get through tomorrow. The folks will be on the draft through tomorrow, and then all the attention turns to our big league team, and more so the trade deadline. And we'll be evaluating every day with a group that we hope and we think should play well here in the second half.
How much does that first road trip kind of influence where you might, go with the trade deadline, or are you already leaning one way or another? And you have a large sample already.
No, I mean, I think every game's important, obviously. I think that, like obviously you get more information, and you've got to look at what's out there in the market. You've got to be realistic with, things that you can do as a group and a team. And you also got to have a feel for where your team is at. And I think so that's every day you kind of see that. And that first road trip will go out, and obviously Kansas City, and then I believe Atlanta and Miami. So we'll see a couple of teams that are in the playoff chase with us, and in front of us. And, I think we'll take it all in. And, you don't want to overreact from game to game, but it's obviously, you get more information over those 10 days. And that'll all be part of our process in making our decisions here as we get to the deadline.
Last one for me. How do you wrap your mind around the underperforming hitters? Manny's turned it on lately, but Tatis's season, Merrill's season, Bogart's season, like how does that impact what you can do? Because you can't really upgrade those spots. You kind of need more from them.
Yeah, I think in the glass half full kind of perspective, yeah, we're sitting at about 500, and we haven't gotten the best performances from our top players. So that's I think there's a part of the group that we look at that and go, okay, these are good players. They have physical ability and a want to go out and perform. And but we've got to get to that spot where those guys are performing at the level there that we're accustomed to seeing from those guys. And those guys care a ton. There's been a lot of conversation over the last week about, okay, how can we, some adjustments we can make? How can we do things a little differently? What are some things we want to stick with? Because as you mentioned, you see guys like Manny and Toddy, they're starting to swing it better here over the last month. But the biggest thing is everybody's like honest and realistic. Like if we're going to get where we need to get to, it's, we're going to see that group, do what we're accustomed to seeing here in the second half of the season. And I think we're anxious to get it started here next week.
Do a few more. We'll go to Marty Caswell.
Oops. Sorry, guys. Hi, AJ. Hi, Chris. How much, I know David asked you about financial flexibility, but with the current and the new ownership group, how much flexibility do you have to add should the team turn this thing around?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think those will be conversations over the course of the next few weeks. And I think you also have to see how the team plays, how we come out of the break, and also what's out there. From deals that make sense. So we're going to go into the process open-minded to see what's there, and see what can help our club. We're going to go in open-minded about whether it's acquiring players or kind of looking at if we have to go another direction. So I think all those things are on the table. I think there'll be conversation in the next few weeks with the ownership group about appetite to add to this group. And again, I think we're going to be in a position to know a lot more here in a couple of weeks. I've seen some different things about the trade market. It really is like almost every team is like pretty much locked in until the draft is over. I think part of that's like there's a heavy focus on the draft. Part of it is just there's a lot of teams in contention, and I think you start to separate a little bit more at this time in the next 10 days, 2 weeks, and we'll get some more answers about what that means from a budget standpoint, and go from there with it.
I think everyone on this call has learned that there's no untouchables when it comes to you at the trade deadline. But should you go that other direction, is Mason Miller someone that you are prepared to take calls on? Is he somebody that you would move?
Yeah, I think it's like for right now, Marty, it's like, yeah, let's get ready for day two of the draft tomorrow, and let's go win a couple more games and hopefully put our team in a better spot. Obviously, Mason's the best in the game, so you're always going to have people that are they're going to be interested in somebody that's the best at their craft and what they do. When we made the deal last year, he's performed as good as you can want somebody to perform, and we made the deal with the intention that Mason's going to be here for a long time, and he's done an unbelievable job. And our intent is still the same as when we made the deal last year.
And last question, I'm sorry. How would you evaluate the job that Craig Stammen and his coaching staff have done this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the group again, like it's I think overall for Craig, he's done a lot of really good things in terms of his process, the way he goes about things with the staff. He'll be the first to tell you that from a win-loss standpoint, he would, he'd love to do better. I'll be the first to tell you that it's not a perfect roster he has, that, ultimately, we've had a lot of injuries like a lot of teams do, but, if you look up and, no Pavetta, no Darvish, no Musgrove, some bullpen injuries, some position player injuries, no Laureano. And the biggest thing with Craig and why he's, good at what he does, why he was a good player, why he's continues to he's gonna continue to grow as a manager. He's open to learning and growing, and he'll talk and be like, yeah, there are some things that I can do better. And I think for us as a staff, we try to do that as an organization. He's doing that from his standpoint, and him and the group are working very hard, and they're looking to get this thing turned around. And I think he's the first that'll go into the second half saying, yeah, I'm going to make some adjustments here, some things that I can work on, that I can do better. And that's usually where this thing starts. So we hired him for a reason. We believe in what he brings to the table. He's been in this organization a long time. We're very familiar with him. And again, I'm expecting the team to play well in the second half with him leading the group.
Anybody else?
One quick one that I don't enjoy asking is the hitting coach. Uh, what do you see from him and correlated to what we've seen from the offense?
Yeah, I think with Steven Souza and with the offensive group, I mean, it's again, like there's been moments throughout the year. What we try not to do is like, hey, have that direct correlation to we go score 10 runs, man, that the hitting coach is doing a great job. We score 2 runs or 1 run or no runs. Hey, it's something on the coaching. I think what we've tried to do over the last few months, and definitely in the last few weeks, as we've gotten more, we've gotten just more information, more games, is it's kind of looking at our process and trying to look at, hey, is our review good? Is our pregame good? Is our prep good? Is it too much information? Is it enough information? And just listening to the staff and players so that we're in a better spot in the second half. And I think we tried not to overreact to the fact that we haven't swung the bats the way we want to and make any rash judgments on what that means, because we've all been there where I think, we see teams that one year play in the World Series or in the playoffs and their offense is at the top of the scale, and the next year, not so much, and the same coaching staff and, similar players. So, again, we like our group. We like our coaches. We think they do a very good job. I can tell you from talking to those guys and working with them, the care factor is huge. The knowledge and intent is big. And, again, for myself, we've got to turn it up here in the second half. And I'm very honest with myself on the job that I've done, and ultimately we've got to come out of this break and play a little bit better here in the second half.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. AJ, Chris, thank you very much